for 2 hours so that we can read through it. Just now, another member has already made this suggestion. Dr. Zhang, I thank you for your suggestion, but it's declined. As I said, even if you're given the written version of my ruling, even if I stop the meeting for 2 or 3 hours, there will not be a debate on my ruling. Once I've made the ruling comes into effect. So now, Council becomes committee, and we will continue with the third joint debate. Mr. Chan, well, you have imposed a restriction of 2 hours. I will have to collate my information. Time's precious. Can we have a break of 15 minutes so that we can maybe tidy up what I am going to say? Well, you can make use of the time when other members have spoken. And if you're not prepared, you can allow other people to speak first. Mr. Chan, are you going to speak? Mr. Ray Chan. Now, Mr. Kwok-hung, what's your problem? You asked if members would like to speak, but I have already had people who have signed up. No, that was on the point of your ruling. Mr. Kwok-hung, I speak in relation to the reduction of the annual budgeted expenditure of the Labor and Welfare Bureau. After you have made your ruling, this whole bunch of my research paper has been rendered useless. Do we have a quorum? I call for a quorum. Do we have a quorum here? Mr. Albert Chan, you now have abundant time to collate your speaking notes.
May I
ask members to be seated so that it will be easier for us to count?
陳志全議員，你是否要發言？
Mr. Chi-chuen, would you like to speak? Chairman, I will continue to speak on the amendments in the second joint debate. And I will cover, there are more than 150 amendments here. I've just covered AFCD-related amendments, and I was going to talk about the Department of Health, the FEHD, the Food and Health Bureau, the two branches under the Bureau, SWD and LWB. But because of the speaking time limit, we do not have 2 hours. We just have under 2 hours. I cannot really compress all I want to say in two sections. I'll be talking about. I'm going to talk about the waiting list for the elderly residential homes. So I would be combining two speeches into one speech. And in 2 hours' time, when you announce that we will proceed to the next joint debate, would you allow me to speak on the remaining issues that I want to speak on in the next joint debate? But the total speaking time has been set, provided that we observe the total speaking time. If there are no other members who had not spoken, I will use the time, remaining time for members. So let's say we are in the fourth joint debate, and every member has spoken on those amendments. I'll allow members to talk about some other amendments. That is to say, I allow those who haven't spoken to speak first, and if there's still time, there's still remaining time, I'll ask members who have spoken to speak again. I have to do this because I don't want to affect the rights of those members who have not spoken. I want to talk about Amendment 1041, Head 170, SWD, Subhead 000. Is proposed by Mr. Kwok-hung, and the deletion of the whole year budgeted expenditure in respect to the waiting list arrangement for residential homes for the elderly. The purpose of elderly residential home service is to allow the elderly to age in their own homes, and if necessary, admit them to residential homes so as to take care of their long-term care needs. However, the FWD has done a very poor job in monitoring the service delivered by residential homes. From time to time, we've noted reports of abuse and also the conflicts between the residents. My mother was a victim. I will be talking about it later. From all these, we know that the SWD has failed to do its job properly. The SWD provide a lot of support measures and residential services, for example, the nursing homes, care attention homes, and also places will be acquired under the board play scheme. The department would monitor the service standards of different types of homes, and if rules are breached or if there are cases of abuse of the elderly, the SWD should stop the subvention. In the past year, apart from the pilot scheme on community care support voucher scheme, the department also provides services to elderly applicants who are waiting to be admitted to residential homes. And more subvented and non-subvented places have been provided, and there are also daycare places. There are measures to enhance standards of elderly home services. In the past 3 years, we have seen the growth in the number of places from 6,100 to 6,400 last year, and then the next year 6,509. Of course, this is not satisfactory in terms of the growth in number, but some would say that at least we have seen an increase. But what about standard of service? Or are we seeing the reverse? That is a decline in standard. There was a residential home in Shanghai. According to some media reports, female care workers abused an elderly resident repeatedly, and the case was exposed by a colleague. And then there was an attack on the elderly with a broomstick, slap on the face, or slam the body of the elderly residents against a door. These cases represent the tip of the iceberg, but you know the iceberg is much bigger than the tip. These care workers who are doing a lousy job were prosecuted by the police. Obviously, there aren't sufficient subvented places to meet the demand. We have 23,000 people waiting to be admitted to nursing homes, or 6,388 for care and attention home. The average waiting time is as long as 36 months, as we have said. Many applicants passed away while waiting. And sometimes you don't know whether if you get admitted, it's a good thing or not. Especially those subvented homes, which are not properly monitored. So you'll be sending elderly people to a hell-like organization. And some are in private homes, and many of them pass away before they get a subvented place. Government monitoring of such homes is very lax, and therefore we have more and more cases of abuse. Some organizations have criticized the administration. The licenses are granted by the government, which means that the homes are regarded as up to standards. But now, because of the shortage in supply, the department turned a blind eye to the substandard performance and standards. I think Mr. Matthew Chung must be blamed because the problem stems from shortage in demand. And there's the plan to buy more places from private homes. And so, the idea was to upgrade the standard of private homes. For those homes under the bought place schemes, they will be graded A1, A2, and so on and so forth. And the department will monitor these homes and to take measures to prevent abuse. Otherwise, the resources provided will be taken away, and the operator will lose a stable source of income. In the past few years, let's look at some figures. in terms of inspections by the government to these homes. In 2010, 5,569 times. 2011 to 12, 5,373 inspections. 2012, 5,314. 2014 to 14, 4,464 inspections. So the numbers are decreasing over the years. And from what we learned from the operators, the sector, they would be tipped off that there's a coming inspection, and they would ask workers from another home to come over to make up for the shortfall in manpower. Otherwise, they would just try to get someone from the street to pose as workers. This is by no means a rare occurrence. The department cannot really properly monitor the service standard. If there's a shortage of manpower, what would happen? Of course, the abusers, those workers who are abusers, should be punished. Of course, the license should be taken away. But in some homes, because of the lack of manpower, or when there is a conflict between the elderly residents, they cannot cope. The home cannot cope. For example, my mother was pressed onto the ground, and she was beaten up for 2 minutes. Her face was swollen, and then a worker found out, and she was sent to hospital. And so it goes to show that the government is only concerned about the numbers or the number of places, and they do the inspections half-heartedly. They turn the other way most of the time. In 2010-11, 404 cases of letters on complaints. 2011-12, 377, 2013, 384, and then 2013-14, 295. Warning letters issued have been on the decrease. So they have been detecting fewer and fewer cases of non-compliance. And there have been so few inspections, 2010, 11, 18 cases, 11, 12, 5 cases, 12, 13, 10, and then 13, 14, 19 cases of prosecutions. These figures were provided by the government in the special FC meetings. We are talking about expending the $40.3 million of taxpayers' money in monitoring the operation of homes, including private homes, in terms of the establishment, the mechanism, the actual operations, the objectives of improving service quality in the homes cannot be reached. So we have cases of substandard service provision, cases of abuse. So how can you explain this to our elderly people? And every year we ask questions about how many elderly applicants pass away while waiting for places. According to Mr. Matthew Chung, if the applicants are not choosy about the location or the particular mode of operation, they would get a place very soon. But you know, these elderly applicants know by word of mouth the reputation and how service was delivered in certain homes.
So they had to wait. They wanted to wait for subvented homes, and they die while waiting. Now that's the consultation document on population policy says that we have an aging population, so there'll be increasing demand for home places. The administration must step up monitoring and ensure the quality of homes for the elderly. It mustn't shirk its responsibility. It mustn't think that because those are private homes, it could just turn a blind eye to the problem. The administration is the licensing authority, so it has the power to suspend a license. Now, in the program area, it says that there will be more day center places. It will keep improving the environment of elderly centers. It will set up new contract homes to provide more subvented and non-subvented places for the elderly, and through an enhanced board place scheme to provide more subsidized places. And then for the ratio of subsidized places in homes for the elderly, the ratio will continue to be increased. So it keeps citing figures, just talking about quantity. But then what about the quality of service at private homes? How do we step up supervision of private homes? If the government doesn't have such an objective, it just set up this service team to monitor private homes, to put up a front to say that, we have such a team, they ask for money, we have money every year for the team. Well, we might as well just scrap the team. Maybe we should force a more senior level of supervision. Perhaps Matthew Chung has to go and inspect the homes each day. Then people dare not cook up figures or do anything funny. That's why I support Mr. Kwok-hung's amendment number 1041 to cut the budget, full year's budget for the service team to monitor homes for the elderly. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Yiu-chung. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking against the amendments moved by these members on these few issues. But I must stress also that during the vote, I will vote in favor of their amendments. Why would I do that? It may seem that I'm contradicting myself, but actually what I'm going to say is going to be contradicting as well. But I would like to explain why I'm doing this. First of all, Mr. Chairman, well, two parts to my speech. In my first part, I would say why I don't agree that they should move these amendments to reduce budget. But then in the second part, I'll explain why I will vote for these amendments. First, the reason why I don't support their proposing these amendments to reduce the budget. Now, actually, it's a good thing that they raise these items because it will allow us a chance to debate the issue. And we could ask the administration for detailed accounts. Because earlier on, when we sought elucidation on your statement, as was pointed out, the basic law gives us the powers to consider the budget. So the government must give detailed account on how it spends money. But the government has not done so in the past. So it would have been a good thing for them to raise this issue for discussion. But unfortunately, in this council, there's no cooperation among members to force an account from the administration. And then these members stress that they are engaging in filibustering. So that's why, Mr. Chairman, you have to make a ruling. Just now you have made ruling, which I believe is a breach of our convention. You're limiting member speech. So what good are you doing that when you move such amendments? Before you move these amendments, have you considered the consequence? So I think it's not right for them to do this. You should know that given the composition of this council, the so-called deliberation process is just like going through the motion. So as long as the government wants to get something passed, it will be passed. We're just yes men. So why are you doing all this? Because this council is a rubber stamp. If something's to be passed in this council, it will be passed. So why are you doing this? You're staging a show. You shouldn't be doing this. And then you have disrupted our procedure, our council meeting schedules, but it doesn't matter much perhaps because it's just a council. We have no impact on the community. But perhaps there's a more serious issue. I wonder if you've considered it. Yesterday, our chief executive, C.Y. Leung, Now, he rarely meets with the press these days because he's afraid he might say something wrong and causes a strong reaction from the public. But yesterday he came out to speak. He told the media two things. One, the administration would not apply for votes on account, because if the government does so, it will only encourage these members to engage in filibustering. And second point, he said it's because of the filibustering, some departments may run out of money to perform their duties. Therefore, he appeals to the public to put pressure on members. Mr. Chairman, the administration should have known this long ago, because members have long stated they would be filibustering. So the administration has duty to make sure that the departments don't run out of money. Mr. Leung, you are digressing. But I want to ask them to withdraw these amendments. I want to point out the consequences of them moving this amendment. So I hope you allow me to give my views. So therefore, it's the duty of the government to do something, because it's known long in advance. Perhaps it could move the budget earlier on so we could have more time to debate it. No, the government hasn't done so. And as if it's just it deliberately would not apply for vote on account. Now, that's why you have to impose a deadline or at least limit our speech. So what good does it do by them moving these amendments? And that leads to an even more serious issue. That is, the chief executive has appealed to the public to put pressure to bear on members. I wonder if you have considered the gravity of this act. That means in a community, people will be lambasting each other. Now that is serious. It will cause an internal rift. And if this rift should extend, there could be such dire consequences I dare not think about them. Now, the Communist Party has done that in the past. It pitches one group of people against another. Are we trying to do the same here? Now, government is actually encouraging some people to put pressure on other people. Are you not worried? I am very much worried. So for this filibuster, it's fine if you want to make amendments. You should just make amendments. Why say it's filibustering is leading to such consequences? I'm really worried. Mr. Chairman, we see the SAR government doing that. And the SAR government doesn't face up to its own duties and responsibilities. Instead, it's passed the buck to this council. It's made members shoulder this responsibility. Well, if that's the case, we must say that we don't support their filibustering, we don't support their cutting the budget. But as I said, I will vote in favor of the amendments to cut the budget. Why? Because many departments are squandering money. They waste money. They spend money on wine, on entertainment. They've turned their offices into wine cellars. They could do things like that. Mr. Leung, which amendment are you talking about? Slashing which budget? We do not have a chance to ask these departments to give a full account on their spending. No, there is not such a channel. We do not know other than this channel of considering the bill or the estimate, what other channel is available to us. Now we are trying to look at each item of the estimate in detail. We ask for explanation for each item. But if we can't do that, we are not able to perform our duties as members. As you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, the basic law requires us to consider the budget, but we haven't a chance to do so. So what is the only channel open to us? then it's as Mr. Raymond Chen suggested, we slash some of the spending so they know exactly how undesirable it is the way they operate and how much it lacks transparency. And now that it's totally executive-led, they don't need to consider our views or our criticisms. Now, the mechanism is this council is that the government has the majority, so they can pass anything they want. It's the same with the Northeast New Territories development. We are considering that item, but you know for sure that item is to be approved. It's like the express railing is bound to be approved. So if we do not move an amendment to slash their spending today, we won't make them face the public or give the public an account. That's why I have to vote in favor of these amendments. Mr. Chairman, I understand that the government is saying that departments are running out of money, they cannot perform their duties. I find that regrettable. Then, as I said just now, the administration should have foreseen this coming. It should have made preparation long ago, but it's not done so. And then it tries to blame it on members, a filibustering attempt. I think they are shirking their responsibility. They are not doing their duties, but then that's how the SAR government is. They have all to say, they're always right, others are always wrong. I've seen many such cases. So the only thing I can do is that when I vote, I will vote in favor of these amendments to slash the budget of departments. This is to send out a message to the government. They must realize that society has changed. Society now asks for a transparent and responsible government that will give account to the people. You can't just say that executively you want to do something, you get it done. No, that's not the kind of society we have. Now, I don't want to take up too much time, Mr. Chairman. Later on, I will be speaking on each item, but today I will just say this. Government, I think you need to back down. You have to respect the people. You have to respect developments in society. You have to give us more account. You have to attach more importance to public opinions, and where you must always put the people first as you formulate policies. Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Albert Chen. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on amendment number 204, moved by Mr. Kwok-hung to as head 49 to reduce the budget by $1.72 billion. Is equivalent to the full year's budget of the street cleansing services for the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department. Well, members, if you might recall that in the past, street cleansing services were provided by civil servants, but then many years ago, all such services were contracted out. Whenever there's outsourcing, Mr. Chairman, there will be middlemen reaping huge profits. It always happens. Frontline workers are squeezed. So I will be providing you some information later on. Now, there are 14 contractors hiring about 7,300 workers providing street cleansing service. Now, we may not have the full information on all the contractors because the contractors are private companies, so we may not have access to all the information. But there's one contractor which is now a listed company. You know, imagine a street cleanser becoming a listed company. You can therefore imagine how lucrative those cleansing contracts are.
Let's look at this company. I'm not going to name it. You will find the information on the internet. Back in 2011, there was a contract awarded to this company. And in 2011, the contract value was 440 million, and in 2013, it's increased to $580 million. It engages 5,000 cleaners. We can see that the employees are actually exploited from the information. So there is a need to scrap the outsourcing arrangement. In 2011, this company incurred an executive remuneration of $14 million. It's increased to 2013, $19 million. We're talking about executives. When it comes to profit, if you read its annual report, when it comes to profit from cleansing work, 2011, $25.4 million, 2013, $45.7 million. It's very clear that there is a huge increase. If you look at the number of employees, there are 5,000 cleaning workers in this company. And if you look at the remuneration, the majority of the cleaners enjoys an hourly rate of $30.2, which is only 20 cents higher than the statutory minimum wage. You see how sad it is. When it comes to working environment, we see that it's rather appalling. From the information, we see that last year alone, the number of industrial accidents involving injuries amounted to 700 cases. Cleaning work is not high risk, but we see that there are about 2 injuries per day. It's not reasonable at all. You see there is a huge increase in executive remuneration and profit, whereas employees' remuneration is low and there is a high number of industrial accidents. We are the Executive Council. Well, do we accept using $1.7 billion for this unreasonable employment to continue? You give them the funding. In the name is street cleansing. But we're talking about tens of millions of profit going to the pockets of the company without benefiting workers. What is more unacceptable is the working environment of these workers. Sometimes they don't even have a place to change. Reporters follow these workers, and there are numerous reports on the inhumane working environment. Sometimes they have to get changed very quickly in a public place. Hong Kong is an advanced city, and you see that the dignity of these workers has been infringed upon. So I support Mr. Leung Kwok-hung's amendment number 204. And let me go back to what I was speaking before. 141 is in relation to dental services. I will talk about 141, 142. And a number of amendment items related to dental services. Let me give you some figures. In relation to dental services, the expenditure that directly benefits the public is small. The majority of the expenditure goes to civil services for the civil servants. Number of patients Mr. Chan, you have already covered this, but I did not give figures. I criticized the general situation without giving figures. I'm not going to read out the figures one by one. Chunwan Dental Outpatient Service, Tunmun Yuen Long, Tai O Chung Chao. The trend has always been quite stable, but we see that public demand is increasing. So is the demand from the civil service. For some dental clinics, say Lantau Island, it's only open to the public on the second Thursday of every month with a quota of only 32. For others, say Yuen Long, there are only 42, slightly higher but still low. With supply falling behind demand, you see that there is a serious insufficiency. Some expenditure goes to administrative expenditure and seminars, say for example an outreach dental service, outreach dental care program. For every outreach team, 3/4 of 1.32 million goes to seminars and talks. So only about $330,000 goes to dental care. And I think the most important thing is the actual services. Of course, when it comes to seminars and talks, there is a need, but where there is an insufficiency of actual dental service, resources should be deployed to this area to improve dental health of the general public. And I'd like to point out that under Amendment 151 is under Head 37, a reduction of $1.9 million, which equals to the annual budgeted remuneration of a consultant under the dental service officers grade. Of course, when it comes to expansion of dental services, we will support that. But because of the lopsided policy, very often when it comes to dental service, it focuses on extraction and pain relief. There is no service provided for denture service. So dental care is not properly addressed and taken care of. A consultant of dental service enjoys a salary of $1.9 million. I think they have to be held accountable. Through a reduction, we express our dissatisfaction of the overall service. This position manages 100 employees, including dental service staff members and dentists, incurring an amount of $80 million. The consultant should put pressure on the administration about the expansion of the service and to help bring about a change. When it comes to Program 8, Personnel management of civil servants working in hospital authority, $8.2 million. Last year there was an increase of 300,000. Under this program, there are 22 people responsible for the management of 1,921 staff members in the hospital authority. I mentioned this last time. The hospital authority should be the responsibility of the hospital authority, not the civil service. Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Tony Zhe. Thank you. This is the third joint debate. Under seven heads, there are 148 amendments covering poverty alleviation, welfare, healthcare, etc. They involve reduction of the dental service, D/H, public health public markets improvement measures, so animal welfare organizations, etc. There are some expenditure that will be reduced to a nominal $1,000 or $100. We're talking about a huge cut. That's unrealistic, in my opinion. If these amendments are endorsed, the services will not be provided. So what is the purpose of these amendments? Do they actually aim at reducing the amount, or is there an ultimate purpose? These members have spoken on the purpose of the reduction. Is it ideal for these members to make a large amount of amendments? Will they benefit Hong Kong as a whole? I see that in recent days there are a lot of voices. Of course, members of the public will make their own judgment. And I would like to express my views in this session. I hope the administration will take into account what I said and take appropriate action. 1 is about development of agriculture. This is an issue that is close to the heart of the public. The administration's been developing new territories. A lot of agricultural land will be acquired for other purposes and rezoned. Some farmers, as a result, will not be able to continue to farm. I note that the administration has been saying that there will be appropriate policies and measures to help farmers affected to resume farming. We see that when it comes to formulation, coordination, and implementation of agricultural policy is under the purview of the Secretary for Food and Health. But when it comes to agricultural land, is under the purview of the Secretary for Development. So when it comes to planning, rezoning, and use of agricultural land under the Development Bureau, is there a comprehensive policy? And what is the cooperation between the Food and Health Bureau and Development Bureau? Mr. Zhe, on which amendment are you talking? Well, some amendments are about the Department of Health and the AFCD in relation to reduction of personal emolument of some officials. So it's related to implementation of policies. Mr. Zhe, I have reminded members that when it comes to reduction of pay of officials, you should speak on the performance of the official. and not the responsible, not the policies under the purview of the official.
Now let me turn to expenditure on social welfare. The government should provide assistance to the needy. Well, I don't think anyone will object to that. But can we deliver in terms of resources? We have an aging population. It's just going to get more and more serious, and people are demanding more and more. It's expected that public expenditure can only go up. So we need to promote a diversified economic development. Without economic development, we don't have resources to fund welfare and help people who are in need. Mr. Chair, I think you're not speaking on the amendments. Chairman, members who have proposed amendments are proposing cuts on certain items of welfare and people's livelihood. On top, they also want to dock the pay of accountability officials and civil servants. I said these members may have their own objective of doing this. And I'm saying that docking the pay of officials is not going to help. If members think that through docking pay, a penalty can be imposed because the officials did not perform satisfactorily, or the officials can be taken to task and improve. But if the cuts mean that there will be just a nominal sum left, say $100, I can't see how the officials can be incentivized to do a better job, whether we're talking about accountability officials or civil servants, to improve their performance. Chairman, I think the government performance has a lot of room for further improvement. I hope the administration will pay attention to all those related issues and make improvements. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung. Chairman, I want to talk about my amendment 684 all the way to 697. Covers a host of things. Expenditure, personal emoluments cut by half, cut to the nothing, everything. Mr. Chair, look at Korean president. She apologized twice for the marine tragedy. There was no need to dock her pay. The Prime Minister resigned. Those who know what shame is do not need this to be prompted of the right thing to do. But we have no choice here. I'm referring to Mr. Matthew Chung and his subordinates. All of them are useless. Why do I say this? He's the head of that policy bureau. His duty is to reflect to his superior, i.e. the Chief Secretary, the Financial Secretary, and the CE, of issues of governance. So Mr. Chung is responsible for any incidents of substandard performance in this bureau. Well, you want to limit my time, so I would throw the lot out. Mr. Matthew Chung, as the secretary, failed to see that there's a fight between the FS and CE. I have this statement prepared and all those empty promises made by Mr. C.Y. Leung in his manifesto. For the long term, there will be a study on the implication of the an aging population on public expenditure, and we would make early preparation and financial provisions be provided to set up a fund to support the elderly so as to meet the additional expenditure on caring for the elderly in the future. So that's his promise. He has been elected since his election, 27 months have passed. And the FS said in his budget, there's this idea to set up a future fund. We can learn from other jurisdictions, other economies to make early preparation. For example, we can consider using the land fund as the starting point, and we add as part of the annual surplus to set up a future fund. And then in case there are successive deficits, we'll still have money to finance strategic infrastructure projects conducive to Hong Kong's future economic development. What's the relevance to the amendments under debate? Well, Mr. John Zhang's proposal is a negation of Mr. C.Y. Leung's promise. So what's the relevance to the amendments? The Labour and Welfare Bureau is the policy bureau on this issue. And as I said, the Director of Bureau failed to reflect the difficulties faced by the community to his superiors, and he failed to detect the fight between the CE and the FS. That's why the Korean Prime Minister resigned, because of the marine tragedy. If your logic is good, why should that Prime Minister resign? So the official should bear responsibility if he fails to point out that there's a problem. That's why Mr. J. Wada and Professor Anthony Leung, Professor Anthony Cheung should also be held responsible. I just want to take away his dignity. And now we have this Mr. John Zhang. His behavior is outrageous. He asked me to go away, and he attacked me. He criticized me. He said, "Go away." He has no passion. He's very good at underestimating the surplus. He would use $200 billion to provide more hardware at the expense of the elderly. And he keeps cursing people, like those old women helping in traditional rituals of worship. $230 billion will be set aside. I want to get $50 billion for another fund. More than 70% of members here think that such a fund will be useful. As I've said, your criticism of the future fund is well known. Please return to the amendments. Well, I think we can discuss whether we should take Mr. Matthew Cheung to task. Mr. Matthew Cheung is not here, and I would like to say all D1 to D8 officials under him should have their pay reduced. Today you want us to finish in 2 hours' time. This is a waste of time, Chairman. If Mr. John Zhang and Mr. Matthew Cheung are here to answer my allegations and my proposed amendments to cut their pay, I think we can set aside all our differences. But they are nowhere to be seen, and you are caught in the middle. Mr. Leung, you know that who would come here to set aside the differences with members is something for the administration. Well, there's I'm talking about the setting aside of differences, not a case. I don't want to be kissed by Judas because the word sounds the same as a kiss. Why do I want to cut the pay of Mr. Matthew Cheung and his subordinates? Because we must talk about governance in terms of history and ethics. I have to quote a wise man's words. This council has a long history in fighting for universal retirement protection. And I quote, in Hong Kong, there are many elderly people who are in great need and are not getting any assistance. Among the poor, 1/4 of them are over 65 years of age. According to our CSSA system, to apply for CSSA, the government would have to place a limit on assets. And many elderly people have savings of tens of thousands of dollars, but the money is not disposable to them because there's no universal retirement protection. The money they have is there for rainy days. I must stress that for the longer term, there must be a comprehensive universal retirement protection system in Hong Kong. That was in 2001, the 20th of November, 2001, and the words were from Mr. Jasper Zhang, the then chairman of DAB. In 2001, you said this. Now 13 years have passed. You said it in 2001. I was in a prison. Mr. Leung, what's wrong of quoting you, Chairman? We should not. You should not speak at length the points. Well, if you said it more briefly, my quotation will be shorter. You can just you could just say that the government was unethical, and you could just tell the government to go away. And actually, I skip one paragraph, or I have skipped one paragraph already. Mr. Leung, Chairman, those are words of wisdom. And in the blink of an eye, the 13 years have passed. And you know, in the Chinese calendar, we have cycles of 12 years. And if we keep on like this, very soon it will be 5 cycles or 60 years. And you are a person with dignity. And they didn't listen to you. And I have to repeat this today for you. I know you cannot speak now. I have to stress that for the long term, Hong Kong must have a comprehensive system. Members should not give lengthy speeches on the policy. I'm trying to reason. I'll give you data. That was what you said in 2001. And 11 years later, in 2012, he just repeat what you said. Mr. John Zhang was advised by Mr. Jasper Zhang, and Mr. Siwa Leung wouldn't accept the advice. And Mr. Matthew Cheung any problem with my pronunciation? There was a fight. Well, the proverb was not pronounced properly. Please advise me. Please don't digress. You should speak on the amendments that you have referred to. If you continue to give long speeches on the retirement protection, on the one hand, you said you would not have sufficient time, and I advised you to make the best use of your time to air views that you haven't expressed previously. Who has ever repeated your words in the 13 years following its delivery? You are repeating yourself.
Mr. Chairman, I know you're going to put pressure on me. Our discussion here today. Now, whether we are slashing the pay of the Secretary to express our views or not, I think everybody knows the answer. John Zhang is the Financial Secretary. To the plight of the elderly, he just turns a blind eye to that. And to the advice of those who care about the elderly, he just turns a blind eye to that as well. He just tells people to back off. I think he should just go away. I've digressed. Okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I've calmed down a bit. What I'm saying is, well, we have to end this joint debate in 2 hours. I mean, how do we have enough time to go through everything? But you said we could, so we just have to say, okay, we could finish. Now, I'm not going to make it easy for people. I don't want them to have lunch comfortably. So, call for quorum.
梁耀忠議員。
Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Mr. Chairman, I speak in response to the amendment moved by Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, Head 170, cutting $40 million from the budget of the SWD, which is equivalent to the licensing office of the SWD for monitoring the homes for the elderly, including the private homes. This is an annual budget for that particular work. Now the performance of the team is far from desirable. It has not done its part in monitoring or supervising the RCHEs in the private sector. 2 years ago, I talked to the SWD. Many RCHEs didn't care for the needs of the disabled, in particular the deaf and also deaf and dumb elderly. The elderly, one deaf or dumb elderly will be put in a home for the elderly. He is the only one in that RCHE who is deaf and dumb, and there is no communication between he or she with other elderly in the RCHE. I came across an elderly who was deaf and dumb, and that elderly suffered from depression because there was no communication between this elderly and other people. Nobody in that RCHE knew sign language. Among the carers, no one understood sign language. There was no communication. And the facilities are also not friendly. Say, for example, the fire alarm. The fire alarm can only emit a sound, but if one is deaf, one cannot know that the alarm has been triggered. And when the elderly felt unwell, the nurse didn't understand sign language. Therefore, the elderly couldn't explain to the nurse or carer how the elderly, in what way the elderly was feeling unwell. And the elderly got into a depression very soon. One evening, the elderly fell from the bed. But the elderly couldn't call for help because the elderly was dumb. And only after a long while, somebody discovered the elderly had fallen from the bed. In the private RCHEs, the care for deaf or dumb elderly people is not adequate, not up to the mark. I've made a complaint to the SWD, but the answer I was given was that they would try to meet the needs of the elderly. That's dereliction of duty, isn't it? If we give the team that much money, can it still work effectively? Chairman, there is a point of order. Whether the display in this chamber is in line with the debate. You can say either it is related or not related. The chairman's already ruled. And I think the size of the display material is still appropriate. Please go on. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, please continue. The chairman didn't allow that. I hadn't had the time to ask him a point of order. I just want to ask you. I want to ask you whether the display material is in line with debate. I think it is. Which one is related? The number. Concerning the number, which one do you think is not related? The one over there. What about the one in front of Mr. Leung Kwok-hung? I'm not able to see what. It is written on that. I can see it very clearly. Don't waste your time. Please go on. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, if you don't speak, then I ask you to sit down. Well, it is still my time. You shouldn't stop me. This is my time. This is time for you to speak, and if you don't speak, I need some time to think. Am I not allowed to think? Now, you don't allow me time to think. Mr. Leung, have you finished thinking? I'm still thinking. Now, please stop speaking. Why? Don't waste time. Please stop speaking. Why? Why is it so? I'm speaking on this item. Now, you can speak after you've thought through these. I call for a quorum and let Mr. Leung to think, have some more time to think. 通而家仲係第二，仲係温。
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Yiu-chung? Mr. Deputy, just now I was on... Sorry? Mr. Deputy, I was on the cut on head 170, and the amount is $40.3 million, and that's for the licensing authority responsible for elderly homes, and I was referring to the plight of the inmates who were deaf and dumb, and fire services did not improve at all because many of these elderly homes did not use the fire alarm lights. Instead, they just have the fire alarm bell, and that's not helpful. And there's also no sign language education. It's not just those staying in the homes having difficulty communicating amongst themselves. They are also having difficulty communicating with the staff of the homes. And even if they have any difficulty, they are not able to express themselves. And also for the people staying there, there is no group activity at all. And they are just passing time there. And some of them are suffering from depression, so it's not helpful at all to them. So other than improving the facilities of these homes, can they also have more people in the same condition staying together in the same home? Well, that would also be helpful because they can also form a group themselves. But then for many years that has not been done, and therefore given the fact that the team is not doing its job, why should we give them funding at all? That's why I agree with Mr. Leung Kwok-hung's proposal to cut the funding for the licensing office. Under head 49 is about a cut for the FEHD, so a cut by $2 million and also $40 million respectively, and both are related to the funding for the FEHD in promoting public markets. It's the annual funding and also half-year funding. And the reason why I think there is a necessity for these two cuts, well, because I don't know where and how they can further promote these public markets. Because as you can see, many of these stores have been left vacant because of their poor facilities. And consumers simply do not want to patronize these public wet markets. And as a result, it has become a vicious circle, and the number of stores operating in these markets would also come down. And given the lack of choice, many consumers also would not go into these public wet markets, and as a result, the operation is very poor. So one of the reasons for this is that in these public markets, many of them are not air conditioned. As you can see, well, in many of these markets, it's air conditioned, but then in the private markets, you also talk about the requirement, and up to 80% of the store operators have to agree before they can install such air conditioning. And it's not just about their consent, it's also conditional upon their willingness to pay for the electricity or power tariff. And it's not just the area within their stores, even the public areas would also have to be paid for by them. And many operators would find it unaffordable because they are not sure after doing their business will they have extra resources to pay for the electricity bill. And it's not just for a day or two. It's going to be on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis, and even if you have paid excess, you will not be rebated. And many operators are concerned that they might not be able to afford it. That's why they would vote against it. And as a result, there won't be any air conditioning, and consumers won't bother to go in. And during the past few years, this has happened. Well, in our case, in our constituency, well, consumers did try to patronize the market, but then as it's too stuffy, as it's too hot and humid, a customer actually passed out. So if that's the situation with regard to these markets, how can they be viable? And if you use funding to promote these markets, then what are you selling? So people will not be bothered. People simply will not patronize these markets. So for these two funding items, I think they are superfluous. On the contrary, there is another item proposed by Kwok-hung. I do not quite agree with that, and that's to cut $15.75 million. I do not quite agree, because that's equivalent to the improvement works for 5 markets by the FDHD, and I think that's not desirable if it's cut, because as I said, well, for these markets, as they are poorly equipped, that's why the operation has been far from satisfactory. And if you cut their funding further so that they will not be able to carry out these improvement works, what is going to happen? So it will become even worse. That's why I think that should not be cut. Instead, there should be an increase in funding, because by increasing the funding for that, then they will have more resources for the improvement of these markets, in particular the installation of air conditioning to these markets, so that customers will be more willing to go into these markets, or else they will simply not be bothered. But then the thing is, will the administration be willing to do that? And if they really want to do that, they will have to change the current policy. As I just said, for installation of air conditioning, you will have to get the consent of the store operators. But then I've taken it up with the FDHD many times. I've asked them to change the policy. It's not willing to change it. So I don't know how that can be improved if they are not going to change their policy. And even if we are giving them more funding, if they are not prepared to improve it, then no improvement will result. And therefore, I agree that their funding should be cut, so that they would understand that there should be better use of such funds. And if they fail to do that, then it's a waste of money. And therefore, we should cut the funding. So for departmental expenses, we don't really want to cut them, but then we have been forced to do so, because they are not willing to face the public aspiration by making improvements to their operation and facilities. And without better alternative, we cannot but cut their funding in order to achieve the policy objective. But then we should not have cut this funding. Instead, we should have increased the funding for them, because if they do not have enough funding, then how can they make improvements? And if they just do it halfway through, then it's not going to help. But then, since we do not have powers to increase their funding, the only thing that we can do is to cut their funding. So that's something that we've been forced to do without a better alternative. That's what I'd like to say under this. Anyone else? Raymond Chan. I'd like to respond to the remarks made by Mr. Yiu-chung and Tony Chair. Well, when we move amendments, we have repeated the logic behind this many times. Number one, when the department or a policy, if the performance is not good, if they have not been able to achieve the target, or if they have failed, well, there are several possibilities. Number one, they have not been given enough resources. That's why they have not been able to do the job properly. That's why we should have increased their resources or increase the funding, but then that would be rather rare, other than say dental services. So in most cases, they have not done their job properly because of the officials' problems, or because of the system. So many departments have many problems. So the fact that we are proposed to cut their funding to $1,000, in fact, we are asking them to be dissolved. Does that mean that the job does not have to be done? Well, that's not true. The administration will have to come up with a more efficient and effective way to do it. If you still do not understand, I can cite an example. Well, in South Korea, after the shipwreck incident, well, the president announced that the marine or the marine police would have to be resolved. Does that mean that the job does not have to be done? No, that's because they have not done their job properly. That's why they will have to dissolve the office altogether so that they will be able to escalate the matter to a higher level in order to resolve the problem. So many people are questioning why you are cutting the funding for a particular department, and still you're saying that the job is very important. So that's the reasoning, that's the logic behind this. Now I'm speaking on an amendment moved by Mr. Wu Chi-wai, item 222, head 49, subhead 000, so that there will be a cut by $5 million under the subhead of head 49, equivalent to the outsourcing of the 3-color bins contract is about 1 year's spending. So it's about half of the contractual funding. So I understand the intention by Mr. Wu Chi-wai. He doesn't want to cut out the spending altogether. But then I'm suggesting that we should have cut it altogether. The reason why Mr. Wu Chi-wai has moved this amendment, well, when he spoke, he already explained that. In fact, if you look at the latest round of tendering exercise for the 3-color bins by the FEHD. In fact, he's proposing this cut based on the amount or the tendering price that was received last year.
Its shortcomings. First, the recycling company is cheating. Well, in 1998 onwards, 3-color bins or recycling bins have been placed in different parts of Hong Kong. We have 16,000 sets or more such recycling bins, with the exception of public and private housing estates. 4,600 sets of them are being handled by contractors. This time, I'd like to focus on these recycling bins that are being handled by contractors. The FEHD has introduced new terms in this tendering exercise. The new contractors must use plastic bags to hold the recycling materials in the bins so that they can be transparent to all. And then there must be 1 or 2 recyclers nominated in the tendering documents with the ability to shred the plastic bottles. Why? Because last year it was found by members of the public that some government contractors handling recycling bins were found to have dumped the recyclable materials at RCPs, refuse collection points. And when the bins were opened, there were plastic materials that could not be recycled, and then different types of plastic bottles and waste paper, and also formula cans. They were sorted by members of the public, but they were finally dumped at RCPs. And the contractor concerned had got the contracts for 4 times in a row because of its very low bid for 8 years. Well, in October, November last year, because he did not handle such material properly and did not handle the bins properly, he received 153 warning letters. And according to the proprietor, some of the recycled materials would indeed be dumped at our landfills. This is ridiculous. He said that was inevitable because of this green fence operation launched on the mainland. All used clothing, electronic waste, and also plastic materials that may pollute the environment would not be accepted. And then recyclable materials that were meant for exportation were stuck in Hong Kong, and our landfills faced a great pressure as a result. And in the 3-color recycling bins, there were other kinds of waste, and plastic bottles were not accepted. It was too expensive to employ workers to clean the bottles. So those recyclable waste that was not up to standard was dumped at our landfills. Now, for external factors beyond our control, such as whether the mainland would accept our recyclable materials, well, it is understandable that a contractor could not handle or process such materials. But what is unacceptable is the fact that he was cheating. As a result, people who were green-minded no longer trust our three-color recycling bin mechanism, and this is the greatest sin. The government has spent so much resources to promote this campaign, and because of the behavior of a contractor, the whole system has now collapsed. Now, people tell me that it's useless to dump things at these recycling bins because everything inside would be mixed together sooner or later to be dumped at landfills. So people no longer like to sort their waste. In the new contract, things are now improved, and the contractor will be very closely monitored. If the company is not capable of handling such materials, the contract should not be awarded. Actually, it should be avoided, and the government should deal with such materials itself, and the government should find a way out for such waste so that people would not lose faith in this recycling mechanism. For plastic waste, it's getting more and more serious. Mr. Raymond Chen, you are speaking unduly long on the policy. Well, this is a very specific policy. This is about the recycling, three-color recycling bin policy. If I do not point out the shortcomings one by one, how should I proceed in this debate? Which amendment are you on? Number 222 by Mr. Wu Chi-wai to head 45 to cut $5 million from head 49. That is equivalent to half of the provision for outsourcing the three-color recycling bin contracts. Well, Yan Oi Tong has got public funding of $25 million, and it has got plastic waste stuck there. And the factory only, the plant has only a daily capacity of 20 tons. But now 2,000 tons of plastic waste are now stuck there. And the recycling industry faces a similar problem. Plastic waste is no longer profitable, so their final fate is being dumped at landfill. Although the mainland has relaxed the trade policy on importation of waste plastic, but then the shipment costs are high and the clearance costs are high. So low-value plastic waste would eventually be dumped at our landfill, so it is a waste of public resources. According to green groups, the problem with Yan Oi Tong shows that we don't have enough public publicity. Our community has done a proper job in sorting at source. If we do not face up to this problem, the incident of Yan Oi Tong is going to happen again and again, and that's why Mr. Wu Chi-wai wants to cut his provision by half. Either the government withdraw this policy or improve it. According to overseas experience, local residents would sort and clean the plastic waste themselves before handing them over to contractors. But the government has not taught the public how to make use of our recycling bins properly. They are treated as ordinary refuse bins by members of the public. This has reduced the effectiveness of the scheme. The government has not monitored the contractors properly. Mr. Wong Kam-shing, the Secretary for Environment, would like to introduce a levy scheme on waste. As a result, there will be more and more waste dumped at our recycling bins to aggravate the problem. Now, if you want more refuse bins, you introduce more refuse bins and do not outsource the handling of recycling bins and don't use money from our environment fund to subsidize such an exercise. Members of the public regard recycling bins as ordinary refuse bins, and there must be a mechanism to ensure the contractors do a better job. Hong Kong people think that brown is for plastic box, a yellow plastics, and a yellow for paper, and red for cans. Do you know? Even if you're handling a plastic bottle, there is a piece of paper, a wrapping paper, and also a plastic lid, and then that plastic bottle. If all three elements are properly sorted, then the plastic bottle can be directly shredded for exportation to the mainland. But now people don't do that. The plastic bottles have to be processed by recyclers. And if they cannot do it in time, then finally the bottles will be dumped at our landfills or RCPs. Some people say that there is no waste in this world. Actually, it's just resources misplaced. I do agree. Now, if this is waste, we can use it for dog feed. So it is resources. So the problem is we have not dealt with waste properly. So Yanoi Tong is just an example. I won't repeat it. So the recycling industry need land from the government for processing of waste. But the final destination is not for recycling, but dumping at our landfills. That means there are three things. It is labor intensive to do sorting and cleaning. Secondly, to turn waste to useful materials, there are various means. We need technology to support it. Thirdly, market publicity, promotion, and survey are also important. The government has to ensure that there is a market for such recycled waste. It should promote such products to both overseas and the mainland. Otherwise, providing resources for contractors alone is not good enough. You think that you can wash your hands after you have outsourced and you've already done something to our environment. If not for exposure by the press, we won't know this is happening. There are places importing plastic bottles. That is, they don't want plastic bottles to be imported into their country for them to remove the wrapping paper and to sort the lid and the bottle. Nobody wants such waste. We should not just say that we have 1 billion recycling fund to assist the industry to develop. And the three things I mentioned were not done. So PWSC is bulldozing this extension of 3 landfills of 1 incinerator and recycling bins. There is nobody to take care of the transitional steps. So I urge members to support Mr. Wu Chi-wai's amendment to cut half of the provision for outsourcing the handling of our 3-color recycling bins. Mr. Albert Chan, you would like to speak on this debate, but we have to end. I will give the floor to Secretary first before you can comment on the amendments again. All right. Mr. Albert Chen, Mr. Kwok-hung, and also Mr. Raymond Chen are here. Mr. Albert Chen, would you like to speak? With your permission, Chairman, I'd like to speak on social welfare, which is in the dispatch of amendments. All right, please make use of your last chance to speak. All right, on recycling bins, I have already criticized this policy a number of times. It is ridiculous that you use a big dark plastic bag to hold the waste paper and bottles and cans. This is ridiculous, and we must oppose the contracting system. And then there are a few amendments involving FEHD for pest control, waste collection, and so forth. All these are services outsourced. I have information to show that only contractors stand to gain, and outsourced workers are being exploited. They receive very low pay, and the cost effectiveness is low. For instance, pest control, the annual expenditure, well, you may not know that it is $150 million to catch about 10,000 rodents. So the average cost is $15,000, not to mention the number of rodents to be killed. Our city design is very different from what it was 2-3 decades ago. So the mode of operation and the way resources are deployed should be vastly changed. Now, I'd like to speak on the lump sum grant system. Amendment number 1039, head 170, to cut $470 million from head 170, that is equivalent to the full-year provision for the lump sum grant scheme. It's been in place for more than a decade, and I think this system has brought catastrophe to the social welfare sector, to frontline officers in particular.
Well, that's of course a new cover for new treasury for the management, because they can open that treasury at any time, get the money, get public money for their own use, but not for serving the public. After the lump sum grant has been implemented, then experienced staff members have been dismissed. The more senior, the senior you are, the higher your salary. The management has power to dismiss you, to recruit those who have lesser experience, lesser working experience, lesser qualification, and therefore they pay less for these new guys, and then they can have more money to be put into their safes. And some of the new recruits don't have the necessary qualification or the working experience. And in terms of low salary and poor job opportunities, apart from that, there is also the introduction of the contract arrangement. In the past, social welfare organizations adopted a permanent employment approach in employing their staff members, their social workers. But with the lump sum grant, the employment contracts have changed, and all are employed on contract terms rather than on permanent terms, and there is high wastage, and that has undermined the quality of service. What is unfair is that the management of these NGOs have reaped the benefits. After introducing lump sum grants for a period of time, they have a lot of money to renovate their offices and turn their offices into luxurious offices. And they also use the money for conducting overseas visits, conducting or even taking courses overseas. This is a top-heavy structure, which is like that of the executive. I mean, the government, the administration, just like the Donald Tsang and other officials who were very greedy. They grab a lot of benefits, and they are mean to the elderly. This practice is now transferred to the social welfare sector, and it becomes a disaster. Now, there have been protests and demonstrations. The administration then has issued some best practice guidelines. But these best practice guidelines are just mere paper. These are bandits and thieves. And you issue guidelines to them and ask these thieves and bandits to follow the guidelines and be good guys. That's really absurd. In the social welfare sector, subvention was given according to midpoint of the salary scale, and also that was the practice of the education sector as well. But some shameless councillors in this chamber supported the administration's proposal and changed the funding for the social welfare sector. I condemn the change in policy. I condemn the administration for bullying the frontline social workers. Now, social workers are professionals, doctors are professionals, teachers are professionals. Among the professionals, social workers have been singled out and have been put under a lump sum grant. There is no lump sum grant for healthcare. There is no lump sum grant for other professional institutions. But in the social welfare sector, the lump sum grant is certainly a discrimination against social workers, and there is nothing good for the provision of welfare services. I therefore support deleting this item and give justice to the social workers. As for Amendment 681, cutting $1.9062 million from subhead 000 of head 140. This is to cut the annual budgeted salary of the Food and Health Bureau. This is for the purpose of the insurance, healthcare insurance. This is for the Planning and Development Director of the Bureau. This is for the legislation, for preparing the legislation for health insurance. Since I'm against health insurance in principle, I support the deletion of this amount. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung has another amendment. Amendment number 694. This is a proposal of cutting $12.2 million to subhead 000 of head 141, which is equivalent to the budgeted annual expenditure of the Office of the Secretary for Labor and Welfare. This is a substantial increase. Now, the office of the SLW has a budgeted increase as substantial as 47%. But what about those who have no benefits, those who are CSSA recipients? Now, the CSFA and also FS, their offices increase budget by 17%, 18%. The Bureau for Caring for the Poor has a budget increase of 47%, and they have not done anything to help the poor. Now they are going to recruit a chauffeur. They have private secretaries, senior private secretaries, EOs. These are senior EOs, SEOs. They are senior posts, and they are going to increase these senior posts. Now, this bureau is weak in caring for the elderly, the poor, and also labor welfare. But when it comes to their funding, they can increase the funding substantially. They are only good at caring for their own welfare. Now, the policy secretaries like to write blogs. In fact, they have suffered from autism. They are just hiding behind the computer screen. They write blogs, and they dare not meet the public, nor do they explain themselves in this council. They just blow their own trumpets and claim credits. They are out of touch with reality, and they don't care about the suffering of the poor. Now, even the consular generals of the other countries, under the leadership of the consular general of the U.S., went to Sam Shui Po to visit Mingo, who gave out congés to the poor. Now, our officials are hiding in their offices, writing blogs only, and they are driven by chauffeurs around the territory. That's really cold-blooded, and we are fortunate that you have not learned this rubbish from them. Please speak to the amendment. How does it relate to your amendment? Yes, it is related. This is the office of the Director of Bureau. This is a cut which is equivalent to the annual budgeted expenditure of the office of the SLW. This is the bureau, the office has increased its establishment in respect of various posts. Now the performance of the bureau is not good. The performance of the Secretary for Labor and Welfare is not good, but they increase their expenditure. Their target recipient of service are not given any help or support, and therefore I support cutting the budget by $12.2 million. There is another amendment moved by me, which is 690 and also 697. One is to cut $77 million. The other is to cut $4 million. This is the salary of the SLW. As for the $70 million, it is the personal emolument of the SL Bureau, L&W Bureau. The logic is the same. I will not read out the posts affected in terms of work, in terms of their performance, in terms of their plans and objectives. Say, for example, maintaining family relationship, improving the living quality of the elderly, helping those who have a lack of means to provide the safety net, caring for children, caring for the disabled. Well, they have many programs, but data have shown that in the past year and also in the past few years, these recipients of service have not experienced any improvement. This is his policy portfolio, and the citizens within that policy portfolio are not given adequate care, nor is the quality of service provided up to the mark. It's really not acceptable, and therefore I move Amendment 690 and 697 to express our dissatisfaction, and this is to express our dissatisfaction towards their performance in service. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, do you intend to speak again? Yes, indeed. There are so few listeners here. I want more people to listen to me. Quorum call, please.
現在咧已經係下午。
It's already 2:38 p.m. When compared to our original schedule of ending this debate, it's more than half an hour in excess of the scheduled time, because when I invite the officials to speak after the debate, and according to our usual arrangement, after the official has spoken, then for members who have moved amendments, they will be invited to speak again in response to the official's remarks. But then, despite the fact that the official is not going to speak during this session, I will still be inviting the members who have moved amendments to speak again. So this is a more relaxed approach in dealing with the amendments. That's because the members said that as I just announced the time limit on the debate this morning, and therefore they needed time to prepare for this. This is reasonable. But then my goodwill has not been responded to by a corresponding goodwill, and members are still calling for quorum time and again, and that's why we have wasted more than 10 minutes on that. And summarizing that experience, during the next debate, I'll be applying the rules more tightly so that we would not be overrunning so seriously. Mr. Kwok-hung. Mr. Chairman, well, despite my low position, I dare not forget about my home country. Well, calling for quorum is the dignity of this council. It's about the dignity of this council. We need to have a quorum to hold a meeting. So what crime have I committed? All right, summarizing what happened during the past 3 weeks, and you said that you had sleepless nights, and you were concerned about the health of certain members. And I think that all boils down to whether elderly would be entitled to retirement protection, and that's the focus of our attention. And the bureau responsible for that is the Labor and Welfare Bureau. Which amendment are you talking about? Well, anything that has to do with the LWB, 688, mover Kwok-hung, head 141, all the way down to 697. Everything that has to do with the Labor and Welfare Bureau. The duty of the LWB is to work for the welfare of the community, and it has to make recommendation to the policy maker on policies that are beneficial to the public. But then, in my view, it has not done its job. Mr. Chairman, as I just exposed, if you look at the policy manifesto of C.Y. Leung, John Tsang has not implemented that, and Matthew Cheung, who has hit himself up for quite a while, and he also has not done his job. Well, since 1987, all the way up to 2011, well, this council has had numerous discussions on universal retirement protection, and every time the conclusion has been that we should have a universal retirement protection plan. You're repeating what you said before. I think even for the 3 kings and 5 emperors, we are also repeating what history is all about. The reason why I'm proposing a cut to their pay. So if I'm not repeating myself, will you be stopping me? Because I have the Democratic Alliance, the DAB, the FTU. Well, at different levels and on different occasions, they've been asking different officials to do their job. I think you're repeating your argument, Mr. Kwok-hung. I think you're violating our rules of procedure. As a rules of procedure, Rule 45.1 provides you've been very repetitive and you've been repeating your arguments time and again. Mr. Chairman, you're wrong. You have no idea as to what I'm talking about. That's why you're second-guessing what I'm going to say, because since 2007, the DAB has changed its stance. That's why the DAB should not have been counted in. Mr. Kwok-hung, you're digressing. Well, I think the Bureau Director has committed fewer mistakes. That's why I'm asking for a pay cut of 6 months. So I'm fighting for his interest. And still, you are saying that that's not allowed. All right. I think the government's stance and attitude has also changed. Well, in 2008, when we had our budget debate, well, the Bureau Director, again, that's John Zhang, and he said, I believe that the budget has already provided appropriate support to the disadvantaged groups, and there have been a lot of relief measures so that all sectors of the community will be able to share in the fruits of our economic success. And I promise that I'll be coming up with the budget that will ensure that everybody will be able to share the success of our economic accomplishments. So this is what we are talking about. I'm not talking about everybody having a share. It's about who is in need. Well, Mr. Kwok-hung, if you continue to digress like that, I'll have to stop you. So I'm talking about the FS. And then I'll be saying that the Bureau Director has failed his job. Well, just now you were talking about the LWB. So please do not refer to the remarks made by the FS a few years ago.
Chairman, well, a person has to accumulate a few years of wrong before I would cut his pay this time. Now, there is bound to be causes and consequences. Now you are speaking for the 12th times already. If you continue to digress, I will direct you to stop. Yes, I know your ruling cannot be reversible. But when a member is still speaking, you don't even know what he wants to say. You call me repetitive. Well, I have never said that. I have not talked about the welfare concept of John Zhang, and that he has gone further and further away from his original concept. You've digressed. No. As an official, Matthew Chung should tell the FS, well, you've made this point, you've repeated this point a number of times, you have gone to the stage of being tediously repetitive. So please, first, do not repeat your points, and second, please do not digress. So why don't you tell me what is my point? Now you have digressed. You have nothing more to say. Please sit down. Of course, I've got things to say. So please continue your remarks in accordance with the rules of procedure. In fact, I am of the view that it is right to cut the pay of the Undersecretary of the Social Labour and Welfare Bureau. Have I ever mentioned the Undersecretary? Well, these remarks have digressed. Please do not digress and continue your speech. Right, the chairman said that I have not mentioned the Undersecretary before. Okay, what are the duties of the Undersecretary? He is to represent the Secretary in this council, or to act as the Secretary when he is not available. Now, the Secretary is not here, the Undersecretary is not here. Have I ever repeated this viewpoint? And then there is the question of the political advisor. For point of order, what is your point of order? I hope that you can enforce the ROP. Because he referred to the Undersecretary. There is no such person as the Undersecretary. Mr. Kwok-hung, I'm talking about the political advisor or political assistant. The political assistant's duty is to coordinate or to liaise with different political parties so that they can discuss with the Secretary on policy issues, on disputes with the government on policies. And the political assistant of the LWB has never approached me. I am famous for monitoring the bureau headed by Mr. Matthew Chung. I even heard things at him. So shouldn't the political assistant have his pay cut? Has he ever asked Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, what is your view on the OALA? And even why don't you discuss with us? All right. No, he earns $100,000 a month. If he had done that, it would not have been necessary for Mr. Kwok-hung to do it out of his place. Now, so he is paid $100,000 per month, and this legislator here would like to undermine his credibility and reputation in order to fight for universal retirement protection. Well, nobody has approached me on this point, even though we have this budget debate. So he has not really discharged his duties. And 7 civil servants, the full pay for these 7 civil servants working in the SLW's office. Again, I would like to see their pay docked, because frequently faxed. Well, you have been tedious and repetitive. Please stop. Please don't say this. Chinese 呢一個 meaning this. Please stop using this term. All right. That one. I faxed him messages. I quote what I faxed him, but I never got any response. For instance, I faxed to him, please ask the secretary to be present at today's sitting, and if he can't make it today, perhaps he can spend $30 billion in 2017 as an alternative. Now, I have no personal grudges against the government or these people. It's just that I really want to have universal retirement protection for the elderly. I've been fighting this for 10 years. I don't mind being criticized or attacked again. All right, I faxed him this message. Has the secretary or the political assistant ever come to me? Now, if his fax machine has broken down, let me know. If the numbers changed, let me know. And if he could not contact the secretary or the undersecretary, let me know. Once you've notified me, I will keep silent. I will give you this limerick for handing over to the SLW instead. So these civil servants are there to support the political assistants. So the undersecretary or the political assistant has been derelict in his duty. So these 7 civil servants are to blame. The spirit of accountability is if the chief executive is being cheated, then those under him should advise him. I've repeated your points many times. Of course, 1 + 1 makes 2 on money. Yeah, well, I've said this a number of times. The issues at stake here now it's not about cutting the pay of. It's not whether it is correct or proper to cut the pay of the secretary, the political assistant, and the 7 civil servants there. They should come out and give us an explanation. They have the authority to help people to resolve their problems, but they now have their own problems. We are asking to cut their pay, and yet they have not come out to defend themselves. Chairman, when a fireman's home is on fire, do you think he will report the fire? No, I think he will try to put down the fire himself first. Now, I think we are reprimanding the SLW, and he can afford not to do anything. If people rely on him to get some relief, how can he do anything? This is just a very simple logic. Do you get my point? If a pig is still alive, you scold it, it will jump. If the pig is already dead, and no matter how you scold it with hot water, it will not have any response. If it is not a public pig belonging to the government. It doesn't matter whether it is dead or alive. But the pig has been fed by public feed, using public resources, so it is happy and alive. So when government officials are being severely criticized if they choose to stay at home or in office and just fight using the keyboard, how can they be leaders of the government? They say that they are willing to talk with us, they are willing to respond to our aspirations, they are willing to promote harmony. Have you seen any harmony between a horseman and the horse he rides? Now, he is riding over me. They said out there that I have been vulgar, repetitive, laborious, and tedious. That's okay. Now, you are not really the Monkey King. You are not naughty enough. But I have been ridden by this disablement. All right, we have Kwok-hung and Yiu-chung acting as rubber stamps. Birds of a feather flock together. Of course, I won't succeed in cutting the pay of these people. Mr. Yiu-chung, point of order. I think his remarks were insulting to myself and Mr. Kwok-hung. I asked for such remarks to be withdrawn. Chairman, Mr. Tam. What remarks were insulting to you, Mr. Tam? I don't want to repeat his vulgar speech. All right, I can repeat. I think birds of a feather flock together. Well, those insects, they live among grass while they feed on dung. They might end up feeding on beans. Mr. Tam, I'm of the view that Mr. Kwok-hung is speaking in his usual manner, and there was no objection to that in the past. So may I remind you once again, Mr. Kwok-hung, please do not use offensive or insulting language among others. All right, we should not insult dogs. All right, I put it in this way. With the pro-establishment members here, why do public officers have to fear us? If we have rubber stamps, why do we have to fear dictatorship? Mr. Raymond Chen, in my last speech, I'm going to conclude my views on the amendments. Now, it is really undesirable for you to give us only 2 hours to round up our discussion. For instance, Mr. Wong Yok-man has sponsored 10 amendments, and yet he has never spoken yet in this debate. If Mr. Wong Yok-man were here, I'm sure he would have asked for more time from you. And Chairman, while you say that we can compress our points, I must say that many of our amendments are very specific. For instance, the 3-color recycling bins I talked about just now, and also my intention to cut the pay of the PS for Food and Health Bureau Food branch. Now, we are talking about only one official, and number 679 to cut the pay of the DS for health too. I would need a speech to speak on the performance of each officer respectively before I can tell you how I can justify my amendment. Now, Chairman, if next time, in the next debate I have time, I will really deal with amendments that have to be dealt with separately. For instance, public consultation on HPS, this is a big issue. electronic health record, the director to oversee this. I cannot just talk about them generally. I cannot just comment on generally how the Health and Food Bureau has not been performing well before I can justify such an amendment. I hope you can deal with this in a better manner, Chairman. For instance, I'd like to talk about 687. That has to cut the full-year provision for reimbursing the MTRC franchise buses and franchise ferries for the fares they have under-received for that scheme. Now, if you would only support one amendment, please support number 51 by Ms. Claudia Mo to cut this $1.6 million for mercy killing of animals. Now, even if we cut this amount, it doesn't mean that the government has no money for putting down animals. We asked the government how much money was spent on putting down animals, and the reply was $1.6 million. We want to cut this, but that doesn't mean that with $1.6 million cut, the department cannot redeploy resources for things it seems fit. As a legislature, by passing this amendment, that means we do not support the government's policy on mercy killing of animals. And it also shows that the whole policy is defective.
Now, no one has refuted our arguments. Now, those from the establishment, whether you are LegCo members or district councillors, in your manifesto, you mentioned many policies to protect animals, or many items of your policies to protect for protecting animals. Why you reject Claudia Mo's amendment? People will go after you. You have not explained yourself. If there is a single amendment which you will support, please support Ms. Mo's amendment. As for my amendments, they are focused on the Department of Health, and I've only spoken on one item, and that is dental care for the elderly. And I hope that you will support my amendment. As for the Food and Health Bureau concerning the Hygiene division, there are very detailed amendments, and I am not given a chance to explain that. If the coming sessions can be dealt with flexibly, I'm happy to speak on these details. With the remaining time, I will speak on this very important item. I support cutting number 687, head 141, an amendment moved by Mr. Leung Kwok-hung from cutting $594.187 million, which is to reimburse the railway, bus, and ferry operators for the fares forgone. Another amendment is 692, which is also moved by Mr. Leung Kwok-hung, which is a cut equivalent to the budgeted expenditure of extending the public transport fare concession. This is a cut of $18.86 million. This is also under the LWB. Now, the scheme itself is a good one. The elderly, the disabled who are eligible can take public transport at a concession. People call it $2 fare scheme, or $2 fare concession. The amendment by Mr. Leung is the present arrangement of giving reimbursement to the public transport operators is not correct. That's something which wastes resources a lot. Now, when the scheme was launched in June 2012, it covered the MTRCL, and then it was later extended to the four franchise bus companies, and then it was extended to Lantau. Now, those above 65 are eligible. Those CSSA recipients who are disabled or who receive 100% disability allowance will get this $2 concession. This is on a reimbursement basis. That is, additional resources will be given to make up for the difference between $2 and the actual fare. What I oppose is the reimbursement arrangement. Look at the numbers. Since the inception of the concession scheme, the administration has reimbursed more than $700 million. 233 million for the MTRCL, franchise bus companies are $490 odd million, and then ferry operators $17 million altogether, more than $730 million, and the scheme will be extended to the trams and the minibuses. Now, Mr. Matthew Chung last week put up a blog called the driving force of $2. Now, $2 can help the disabled and the elderly to expand their social activities, and there are about 700,000 people using the scheme. 620,000 are the elderly. The disabled account for 80,000 of the users. The Secretary says that will enable them to participate in social activities and widen their mobility and scope of living. Now, as for elderly using that concession to meet their friends and go out to have a good time, that will also cause waste of public funds. It will become a long-term subsidy given to transport operators. This reimbursement scheme, it gives people the suspicion that the administration is giving favors in disguise to the operators. The amount of money involved is more than $700 million. A $2 concession enables the elderly and PWDs to expand their social scope. They can go to look for their friends, have a watch a film, or do other social activities. They make use of the octopus, and they don't need to make further applications. Now, when elderly people go out, they also talk to the Secretary, said that reduces the cost of traveling, and they make good use of the concession scheme to visit their friends. They go to the outlying islands, they go to the countryside. I do not deny that there are retired policy secretaries who go out to say that they go to Lantau every day, they can go to the countryside every day, that enhance their quality of living. Some elderly said that in the past they visit their grandchildren just once in several months, but now they visit their grandchildren several times a week. But with this $2 concession scheme, there is a concern of not appropriately using this concession. Whatever trip you travel, long or short, you pay $2. If you take a bus, you take a route just for one stop, you hop on a bus which will go through 2 tunnels, then it is an appropriate use. If you live in Wafu Estate, you have to go to Queen Mary Hospital for medical consultation frequently. Then you take 47M, then $2.70. The government subsidizes 70 cents. But if you take 970, $5.50, the government pays $3.30. If he takes a tunnel bus, then the subsidy will be even many times bigger. Now, some elderly just hop on any bus if it's just one stop, and they will take a long route bus, a long haul bus. You can't blame them because they pay $2. They don't need to care about it. When there is a bus, they will hop on it. I don't blame the elderly. He will not wait for the cheapest bus. Whether it's 900 something, whether it goes through the WHC into the new territories, I don't care. When the bus comes, and then I hop on because I just ride for one stop. Has the administration considered that there's a wastage in this regard? The administration just closes its eyes when the bus companies provides the numbers and they will pay. Now, this is a scheme to assist the disadvantaged, but in the end, it favors the transport operators. This is not the best way to encourage elderly people to go out. The elderly do not care about how much is in their octopus account. They just, or rather, how much they pay, because that's only $2. After all, they know that every time $2 are deducted. And then the rest will be paid by the government. As long as there's money in their account, that's okay. I think Mr. Michael Tian has raised a similar concept. It shouldn't be $2 for any trip, any route, and then the government pays the difference. Just like the WITS. You give a fixed amount of subsidy to the recipients. You can put the money into the octopus account, or you put the money into the bank accounts, instead of reimbursing the public transport operators. Then the elderly will assess. Say I have $1,000 or $500 in my account, subsidized by the government. Should I ride a $2.70 bus for one stop, or should I ride a more expensive bus? The elderly can assess. I noticed that the Star Ferry, starting from 1990, provides a concession to the elderly that covers Central to Tsim Sha Tsui, and also Wen Chai to Tsim Sha Tsui. Now the government has to reimburse the Star Ferry. So the government has spent more. The government says that in view of the business prospect, in assessing the fare increase, the administration agrees to provide this special assistance. The $2 scheme is to give money to the Star Ferry. That's unreasonable. Why should we subsidize public transport operators? Now, after hearing my arguments, you know that I'm not fault-finding. I'm not nitpicking. This is to make good use of public money. We should cut the this expenditure. Now, the debate of this group has come to an end. $44.60. Sorry, speaker is not coming through. 137, 159, and 184. The Council is now in the fourth joint debate, and this cover